When Nessa takes a cleaning job at a mansion, she doesn't expect to find her high school crush and longtime heartache, Asher Callan, on the other side of the door. He's rich, successful, and still remembers everything about her. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Vanessa Green checked her watch and sighed. The morning bus was late again, which meant she'd have to rush to make it to her first cleaning job on time. At 35, she had hoped life would be easier by now. But here she was, still pinching pennies, still worrying about being late, still wearing the same practical shoes she'd bought 3 years ago. "Good morning, Nessa," called Mrs. Finch from the corner bakery as Nessa hurried past. "Running late again?" "Bus didn't come," Nessa replied with a quick smile. "Save me a cinnamon roll for later?" The bus finally arrived, and Nessa squeezed herself into one of the last available seats. She scrolled through her phone, checking her schedule for the day. 4 regular houses, then a new client at 4 p.m. Her boss had been mysterious about this one, just said it was a high-profile job and to be on her best behavior. By the time she finished her 4th house, Nessa's back ached. She sat on the front step and called her niece. "Hey Lily, just checking in. Did you remember to take your lunch today?" "Yes, Aunt Nessa," said the 16-year-old with the patience of someone who'd been asked this question 1,000 times. "And yes, I'll start my homework before you get home." "That's my girl," Nessa smiled. "I've got one more house today. Some fancy place out on memory lane. Might be home a little late." "The mansions?" Lily asked, her voice suddenly interested. "Like where all the rich people live?" "Apparently." "Don't get excited. I'm just cleaning it, not buying it." Nessa hung up and checked the address one more time. Memory Lane. Just the name made her stomach tighten. She hadn't been to that part of town in years, not since high school, when the rich kids would throw parties in their parents' big houses, while kids like her worked weekend shifts at the diner. Her car protested as she drove uphill toward the wealthier part of town. The old sedan had seen better days, and the climb made the engine whine in complaint. "Just a little further," she muttered, patting the dashboard. "Don't quit on me now." The houses grew larger as she drove, with manicured lawns and circular driveways. Finally, she turned onto Memory Lane and followed it all the way to the end, where a massive iron gate stood partially open. The mansion beyond was impressive, 3 stories of stone and glass, with wide windows that caught the afternoon sun. It looked both modern and somehow timeless, the kind of place that belonged in magazines. Nessa parked her car, gathered her cleaning supplies, and walked to the front door. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was just another job. The rich were no different than anyone else. They just had bigger houses to clean. She rang the doorbell and waited. No answer. She tried again, shuffling her feet nervously. Finally, the heavy wooden door swung open, and Nessa found herself staring at a face from the past, Asher Callan. The years had changed him, his once boyish face now more angular, with a neatly trimmed beard and tiny lines around his eyes, but it was unmistakably him. The boy who had made her high school years a mix of silent crushes and painful embarrassment. "I'm from Spotless Cleaning Services," she said quickly, hoping he wouldn't recognize her. "I'm here for the 4 o'clock appointment." Asher's eyes narrowed, slightly studying her face. Then they widened in recognition. "Nessa Green," he said slowly. "You still wrinkle your nose when you're annoyed." Her stomach dropped. Of all the houses in town, she had to end up at his. "I should go," she said, already turning away. "I'll have the agency send someone else." "Wait," Asher said, his voice suddenly less confident. "Don't go, please." Nessa stopped, not looking back at him. "Why?" "So you can remind me about all the fun times in high school." "No thanks." "I'll triple your rate," he said quickly. "I just want the place cleaned right, that's all." Nessa turned slowly. Triple the rate meant she could finally fix the car's transmission, maybe even start putting away money for Lily's college fund. "Fine," she said coldly. "Where do you want me to start?" Asher stepped back, allowing her to enter. The interior of the mansion was surprisingly sparse. Expensive furniture, yes, but minimal decoration. No family photos, no personal touches. Just space and silence. "Kitchen and living areas first," he said, leading her through a massive foyer. I have some work to do in my office upstairs. Just do whatever you normally do." Nessa nodded stiffly and began unpacking her supplies. As soon as Asher disappeared upstairs, she let out a long breath. How was this happening? Asher Callan, the boy who used to call her library mouse because she was always hiding in books. The boy whose teasing had once made her cry in the girls' bathroom. Now he was living in this massive house, clearly successful, while she was still struggling paycheck to paycheck. She attacked the kitchen with more force than necessary, scrubbing countertops until they gleamed. An hour passed, then 2. The house was clean but felt unlived in, as though no one actually cooked in the kitchen or relaxed in the living room. When she moved to dust the bookshelves in what appeared to be a study, she noticed something odd. One entire shelf was filled with tech magazines and business journals, all featuring Asher on the cover. Tech genius changes industry. Callan's new software revolutionizes security. From college dropout to millionaire, the Asher Callan story. So that's what happened to him. He'd become some kind of tech superstar. Find anything interesting? Nessa jumped at the sound of Asher's voice behind her. She hadn't heard him come in. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I was just dusting." "It's okay," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Those are mostly for my parents anyway. They like to collect them." "You don't live here with family?" she asked before she could stop herself. "No, just me." He glanced around the big, empty house. "Lots of space for one person, I know." An awkward silence fell between them. Nessa returned to her dusting, aware of Asher still watching her. "You disappeared after graduation," he finally said. "I heard you got a scholarship to state." Nessa kept her eyes on her work. "I did. For a while." "What happened?" She turned to face him. "Life happened. My sister got sick. Lily needed someone to take care of her." She shrugged. "Not everyone gets to follow their plans." Asher nodded slowly. "Lily is your niece?" "Yes. She's 16 now, smart as a whip." "Like her aunt," Asher said quietly. Nessa frowned, unsure how to respond to what sounded like a compliment. This wasn't the Asher she remembered, the confident boy with the sharp tongue who always had a comeback. "I should finish up," she said, moving past him into the hallway. "I still have the sunroom to clean." The sunroom was at the back of the house, a beautiful glass-enclosed space filled with plants and natural light. It was the only room that felt truly lived in, with a comfortable chair and books scattered around. As she cleaned, Nessa noticed a cardboard box tucked underneath a side table. She moved it to vacuum underneath, and the top fell open, revealing what looked like old yearbooks. She knew she shouldn't look. It wasn't her business. But when she saw the name of their high school on the cover, curiosity got the better of her. She opened the yearbook from their senior year. Memories flooded back as she flipped through the pages. The cafeteria where she always sat alone, the library where she found refuge, the classrooms where she kept her head down and her hand rarely raised. Then she came to her own photo. Plain, Nessa Green with her sensible haircut and shy smile. But something was different. Her picture was circled in pen, with a small note written beside it. "Always smarter than me." Nessa stared at the page, confused. She flipped further and found more notes next to her photos from other years. "Best writer in class. Never gets the credit she deserves." She closed the book quickly when she heard footsteps approaching. Asher appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs. "I made tea," he said, offering her one. "You used to drink tea in English class. Earl Grey, right?" Nessa accepted the mug automatically, too surprised to refuse. "You remember that?" Asher sat down in one of the wicker chairs, gesturing for her to join him. After a moment's hesitation, she did. "I remember a lot of things," he said, his voice different now, no trace of the arrogance she remembered. Instead, there was something almost fragile in his tone. "Including how awful I was to you." Nessa sipped her tea, not sure what to say. "I wasn't teasing because I didn't like you," he continued, staring into his mug. "I was 15 and stupid, and you terrified me." "I terrified you?" Nessa couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. "I barely spoke to anyone." "That was part of it," Asher admitted. "You were so smart, so sure of yourself in this quiet way. Nothing seemed to touch you. Meanwhile, I was just a kid desperate for attention, trying to make everyone laugh so they wouldn't see how scared I was of failing. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the sunroom. Outside, the hills were bathed in golden light. "Why are you telling me this?" Nessa asked. "Because I never got the chance to apologize," Asher said simply. "And then today you showed up at my door like some kind of second chance." Nessa stood up, suddenly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "I should go. Lily will be waiting for dinner." Asher didn't try to stop her this time. He just nodded and followed her back to the front door, where she gathered her supplies. "Will you come back?" he asked as she stepped outside. "Next week, I mean, for regular cleaning." Nessa hesitated. The rational part of her said to run far away from this man and these uncomfortable memories, but the practical side knew that triple pay would make a huge difference in her life. "Same time next week," she said finally, "but just for cleaning." "Nothing else?" Asher nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Nothing else," he agreed. "Thank you, Nessa." As she drove away, Nessa's mind was spinning. The yearbook with her pictures circled, the tea he remembered she liked, the apology she never expected to hear. 15 minutes later, she pulled into the driveway of the small house she shared with Lily. It wasn't much, but they had made it a home. When she walked inside, Lily was at the kitchen table, books spread out around her. "So?" the teenager asked eagerly. "How was the mansion? Was it amazing? Did they have a pool?" Nessa set down her bag and leaned against the counter, still trying to process everything that had happened. "It was unexpected," she said finally. "And yes, they had a pool, and the person who lives there is someone I knew a long time ago." "Like an old friend?" Lily asked, twirling her pencil. Friend wasn't the word Nessa would have used, but enemy didn't seem right anymore either. "Just someone from high school," she said. "It's no big deal." But as she started preparing dinner, Nessa couldn't shake the image of Asher sitting in that sunlit room, looking at her with eyes that seemed to remember everything. Both the things she wanted to forget and the things she never knew existed. The following week went by in a blur of regular houses, grocery shopping, and helping Lily with her science project. Nessa tried not to think about Asher or the mansion at the end of memory lane, but her mind kept drifting back to the yearbooks and the notes she'd found. "You're distracted," said Helen, her boss at the cleaning service, when Nessa accidentally knocked over a bottle of cleaning solution. "Something on your mind?" "No," Nessa said quickly. "Just tired." Helen raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "Well, that Callan job called. Wants to make sure you're the one who comes back tomorrow. Said he was very satisfied with your work." Nessa nodded, ignoring the knowing look Helen gave her. "It's just a job," she said firmly. But when Thursday afternoon came around and she found herself driving back up to the mansion, Nessa couldn't deny the nervous flutter in her stomach. She told herself it was just discomfort at facing her past, nothing more. This time Asher opened the door immediately, as if he'd been waiting for her. He was dressed more casually today, jeans and a simple blue sweater that made his eyes look even bluer than she remembered. "Hi," he said, stepping back to let her in. "Thanks for coming back." Nessa nodded, keeping things professional. "Where would you like me to start today?" "Wherever you want," Asher said. "I actually have a repair guy coming to look at something in the basement, so I'll be down there if you need me." Nessa was relieved to have the space to herself. She worked methodically through the main floor, noticing small changes since her last visit. Fresh flowers in the living room, a half-read novel on the coffee table, signs that someone was actually trying to live in this huge space, not just exist in it. After finishing the main floor, she moved upstairs. There were 6 bedrooms up there, but only one looked used. Asher's room was surprisingly simple. A large bed with plain dark blue bedding, a nightstand with a stack of books and a desk with a laptop. No television, no fancy gadgets, despite his tech background. As she dusted his bedside table, she noticed a familiar title among his books, To Kill a Mockingbird. She picked it up, remembering how it had been assigned reading in their junior year. Inside the cover was a note in faded pencil. "Nessa," said Scout, reminds her of someone real. Look for the truth in fiction. She was still holding the book when Asher appeared in the doorway. "Sorry," she said, quickly putting it back. "I wasn't snooping." "It's okay," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "It's a good book." "It was my favorite in high school," Nessa admitted. "I know." Asher smiled slightly. "You gave a presentation about it that made Mrs. Wilson cry." Nessa blinked in surprise. You remember that? Like I said, I remember a lot of things. He hesitated, then added, Are you hungry? I ordered some sandwiches from that deli downtown. Nessa's first instinct was to refuse, to maintain the professional distance. But her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, and Asher grinned. I'll take that as a yes, he said. Come on, they're downstairs. Reluctantly, Nessa followed him to the kitchen, where a brown paper bag sat on the counter. Asher pulled out 2 wrapped sandwiches, sliding one toward her. Turkey on wheat, no mayo, extra tomato, he said. That's still your favorite, right? Nessa stared at the sandwich, then at Asher. How do you know that? He shrugged, unwrapping his own sandwich. You used to trade your mayo packets for my tomato slices in the cafeteria. Some things you don't forget. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Despite her best efforts to remain detached, Nessa found herself relaxing slightly. So, Asher said finally, Tell me about Lily. You said she's 16. Nessa nodded. Going on 30 some days. She's smart, stubborn, already talking about colleges she can't afford. What does she want to study? Computer science, actually. Nessa smiled despite herself. She loves coding. Taught herself from YouTube videos since we can't afford the fancy camps and classes. Asher's eyes lit up. Really, that's amazing. Has she tried the new Python course online? I could send you the link. Before she knew it, Nessa was in a real conversation with Asher, discussing Lily's interests and ambitions. It felt strange, but not entirely unpleasant. What about you? Asher asked eventually. Do you like cleaning houses, or is it just to pay the bills? The question brought Nessa back to reality. Not everyone gets to chase dreams, Asher. Some of us just do what we have to do. He looked down at his empty sandwich wrapper. I didn't mean it like that. I remember you wanted to write. You were good at it. That was a long time ago, Nessa said, standing up and gathering the wrappers. I should get back to work. Dice. She finished cleaning the upstairs. Nessa tried to push away thoughts of how easy it had been to talk to Asher, how he'd remembered details about her that even she had almost forgotten. It didn't mean anything. People like Asher Callan didn't suddenly change after 20 years. When she came downstairs with her cleaning supplies packed up, Asher was waiting by the front door. Same time next week, he asked. Nessa nodded. That's the schedule. Great. He hesitated, then reached for a small paper bag on the entry table. This is for Lily. It's just some books on coding I thought she might like. Nessa stared at the bag but didn't take it. We don't need charity. It's not charity, Asher said quickly. It's an apology. For being such a jerk back then, please take it. After a moment's hesitation, Nessa accepted the bag. Thank you, she said stiffly. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. That night, after dinner, Nessa handed the bag to Lily. These are from the guy whose house I clean. He works in tech and thought you might like them. Lily's eyes widened as she pulled out 3 books on advanced coding and a brand new flash drive. Attached to one book was a sticky note from a fellow bookworm. This is amazing, Lily exclaimed, already flipping through the pages. These are like $50 each. Why would he give them to me? He said he wanted to apologize for something, Nessa said vaguely. It's not a big deal. But it was a big deal, and they both knew it. New books were a luxury they rarely indulged in. What's his name? Lily asked, examining the sticky note. Asher Callan, Nessa replied, watching her niece's reaction. Lily's jaw dropped. Wait, the Asher Callan? The founder of Secure Sync? Aunt Nessa, he's like famous in the tech world. We just studied his company in my computer class. Nessa felt her chest tighten. Of course, Asher wasn't just successful, he was famous. Meanwhile, she was still struggling to make ends meet. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Nessa would arrive at the mansion, and Asher would find reasons to be home during her cleaning time. Sometimes he'd work quietly in the same room. Other times he'd offer her tea or lunch. Always he asked about Lily, and always he left something for Lily. Books, online course access codes, even a small laptop that he claimed was just an old spare, but was clearly new. I can't keep accepting these things, Nessa told him firmly. After the laptop appeared, it's too much. She deserves the tools to pursue what she loves, Asher said simply. Consider it an investment in a future tech colleague. Despite her reservations, Nessa couldn't deny how much the gifts meant to Lily. Her niece was thriving with the new resources, staying up late coding and excitedly sharing her progress. One rainy afternoon in late October, Nessa arrived at the mansion to find Asher in jeans and an old t-shirt, attempting to fix a leaking faucet in the kitchen. "Shouldn't you call a plumber?" she asked, watching him struggle with a wrench. "Probably," he admitted with a sheepish smile. "But I'm trying to learn to do things myself. This house has too many things that need fixing." "Here," Nessa said with a sigh, setting down her cleaning supplies. "Let me help." Together they managed to fix the leak. Nessa couldn't help noticing how different Asher seemed from the arrogant boy she remembered, or the wealthy tech mogul she'd expected. There was something almost vulnerable about him as he thanked her for her help. "Why do you live in this huge place all alone?" she asked as they cleaned up the water that had spilled. Asher's expression grew serious. "I bought it to prove I could, I guess, to show everyone back home that I'd made it." He looked around the massive kitchen. "Now it just feels empty most of the time." "Then why stay?" "Where else would I go?" He shrugged. "At least here nobody wants anything from me." Something in his tone made Nessa look at him more closely. "Is that what usually happens? People want things from you?" "Money, connections, investment in their startups," Asher said with a bitter smile. "When you have money, it's hard to know if people like you or what you can give them." For the first time, Nessa saw past the mansion and the success to the loneliness beneath. Maybe they weren't so different after all, both isolated in their own ways. That realization made her uncomfortable. It was easier to think of Asher as the same thoughtless boy who had teased her, or as a wealthy man too privileged to understand real problems. Seeing him as a person with his own struggles made it harder to keep her walls up. After finishing her cleaning that day, Nessa found Asher waiting by the door as usual. But this time he seemed nervous. "I have a business dinner tomorrow night," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Some investors I need to impress. I was wondering if maybe you'd want to come with me." Nessa stared at him, caught completely off guard. "Like a date?" "No, not a date," Asher said quickly. "Just, I hate these things. And it's easier when there's someone real to talk to, someone who isn't just trying to get something from me." Every instinct told Nessa to refuse. This was crossing a line, moving from professional cleaning lady to something else entirely. "I can't," she said finally. "I have Lily to think about." "She could come too," Asher suggested. "There's a tech demonstration before the dinner. She might enjoy it." The hopeful look on his face made something shift inside Nessa. Before she could reconsider, she found herself nodding. "Okay, but this isn't a date," she said firmly, "and we're not staying late." The smile that spread across Asher's face was nothing like his old smirk from high school. It was genuine, almost boyish in its delight. "I'll pick you up at 6, he said. "Thank you, Nessa." As she drove home, Nessa tried to ignore the flutter in her stomach. It wasn't a date. It was just a favor for someone who had been kind to Lily, nothing more. But when she told Lily about the invitation, her niece's reaction didn't help. "Oh my God," Lily squealed, bouncing on her bed. "We're going to dinner with Asher Callan, the Asher Callan? This is amazing. What are you going to wear?" "It's not a big deal," Nessa insisted, "and it's not a date." "Sure it's not," Lily said with a knowing smile. "That's why you're blushing." "I am not blushing," Nessa protested, even as she felt her cheeks grow warmer. "It's just a business thing. He needs normal people there so he doesn't die of boredom with all those rich investors." But as she stood in front of her closet that night, examining her limited options, Nessa couldn't deny the nervous energy coursing through her. For the first time in years, she cared about what she was going to wear, and what Asher Callan might think when he saw her in it. And that realization terrified her more than anything else. At exactly 6 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up in front of Nessa's small house. Lily, who had been watching out the window for the past 20 minutes, squealed with excitement. "He's here, and it's not just any car, that's a Tesla." Nessa took one last look in the bathroom mirror. She'd settled on her only decent dress, a simple navy blue wrap dress she'd bought for a cousin's wedding 2 years ago. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she'd even found time to apply a little makeup. She looked nice, but not like she was trying too hard. At least that's what she told herself. "Aunt Nessa, hurry up," Lily called. With a deep breath, Nessa grabbed her purse and joined Lily at the door. Her niece looked adorable in her best jeans and a borrowed blouse, practically bouncing with excitement. Asher was standing beside the car, looking nothing like the casual man who attempted to fix leaky faucets. In a perfectly tailored dark grey suit and light blue tie, he looked every bit the successful businessman. When he saw them, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "You both look amazing," he said, opening the car door. "Thank you for coming." The drive to the hotel where the dinner was being held was filled with Lily's excited questions about Asher's company and the latest tech developments. Nessa sat quietly, watching the easy way Asher answered, never talking down to Lily despite the girl's youth. "So what exactly is happening tonight?" Nessa finally asked as they pulled up to a luxury hotel in the center of town. "Tech demonstration first," Asher explained, handing his keys to a valet. "Then dinner with potential investors. It's mostly just showing off new security software and convincing rich people to give us more money." "Will there be other people like us there?" Nessa asked hesitantly, suddenly aware of how out of place they might look. Asher took her hand briefly, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "There are no people like you two," he said with a smile. "But yes, there will be other guests, family, members, friends. You won't be the only non-tech, non-investment people there." The hotel ballroom was already half full when they arrived. Men in expensive suits and women in cocktail dresses stood in small groups, holding champagne glasses and making small talk. Nessa immediately felt out of place, but Lily was too excited to notice, her eyes wide as she took in the elegant setting. Mr. Callan, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, approached them immediately. "We were wondering when you'd arrive. The Henderson Group is particularly eager to speak with you." "James," Asher nodded politely. "I'd like you to meet my guests. This is Vanessa Green and her niece Lily." James barely glanced at them before continuing. "The demonstration is scheduled to begin in 15 minutes. Should I tell them you'll need more time?" "No, 15 minutes is fine," Asher replied, his tone suddenly more businesslike. "Would you show Lily where the tech display is set up? I think she'd find it interesting." As James led an eager Lily toward a setup of computers and screens at the far end of the room, Asher turned to Nessa with an apologetic smile. "Sorry about that. Business mode activates automatically at these things." "It's fine," Nessa said, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. "This is your world." Asher frowned slightly. "It's not my world, it's just my job." He offered her his arm. "Come on, I'll introduce you to some people who aren't complete bores." The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and polite conversation. Nessa was surprised to find that she enjoyed talking with some of Asher's colleagues, particularly a woman named Diana, who had started a coding program for underprivileged kids. "Asher's been one of our biggest supporters," Diana told Nessa. "Not just financially, but he actually comes in and works with the kids. They adore him." Nessa glanced across the room where Asher was deep in conversation with an elderly man. "I didn't know he did that kind of volunteer work." "Oh, he doesn't advertise it," Diana smiled. "But he's there every Tuesday afternoon without fail. Says it keeps him grounded." Before Nessa could respond, the lights dimmed slightly, and a spotlight illuminated a small stage at the front of the room. Asher made his way there, suddenly transformed, as he took the microphone. Gone was any trace of the uncertain man who struggled with plumbing. This Asher was confident, articulate, and completely in command of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight," he began. "At SecureSync, we believe that digital security should be accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford premium services." As he continued his presentation, Nessa found herself watching him with new eyes. He spoke passionately about protecting people's data, about making the internet safer for ordinary users. This wasn't just business talk. He actually seemed to care. Lily appeared at Nessa's side, eyes shining. "Isn't he amazing? I got to see the whole system up close. One of the engineers showed me how it works." After the presentation came dinner, an elegant affair with multiple courses served by attentive waiters. Nessa was relieved to find herself seated between Asher and Diana, with Lily across from them, still chatting excitedly with one of the younger engineers. "You've made quite an impression on my niece," Nessa said quietly to Asher as dessert was served. "I've never seen her this excited about anything." "She's impressive," Asher replied. "That engineer she's talking to, he's trying to recruit her for an internship when she's older. She has a natural talent." Pride swelled in Nessa's chest. "She works hard, like her aunt," Asher said, his eyes meeting hers. "You always did." Something in his gaze made Nessa look away, her heart beating faster. This was dangerous territory. She couldn't afford to forget who they were, who he was. The evening was winding down when an elegantly dressed woman approached their table, her gaze fixed on Asher. "Asher, darling," she purred, placing a manicured hand on his shoulder. "I thought that was you. It's been too long." Asher's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Melissa, I didn't know you were in town." "Just for the conference," she replied, her eyes sliding to Nessa with cool assessment. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" "Of course," Asher said stiffly. "Melissa Hawkins, this is Vanessa Green and her niece Lily." "Melissa is a former colleague." "Colleague," Melissa repeated with a knowing smile. "How polite of you, darling." She turned to Nessa. "Asher and I were quite close for a while. Business and pleasure, you know how it is." Nessa felt her face grow warm. "Nice to meet you," she said neutrally. Melissa leaned closer to Asher, whispering something in his ear that made him frown. With another calculated smile at Nessa, she sauntered away. An uncomfortable silence fell over their table. Lily, sensing the tension, looked between Nessa and Asher with concern. "I think it's time we headed home," Nessa said, gathering her purse. "Lily has school tomorrow." Asher nodded, his expression unreadable. "Of course, I'll drive you." The car ride home was quiet, with none of the easy conversation from earlier. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the excitement of the evening. As they pulled up to Nessa's house, Asher turned to her. "I'm sorry about Melissa. She's part of a world I'm not proud of." "You don't owe me any explanations," Nessa said, her voice carefully controlled. "We're not anything to each other, aren't we?" Asher asked quietly. "I thought we were at least becoming friends." Nessa stared out the window at her small house with its peeling paint and saggy porch steps. Then she looked at Asher in his perfect suit sitting in his luxury car. "People like us don't become friends, Asher. We're too different. Tonight just reminded me of that." "Different how?" Asher pressed. "Because I have money and you don't. That's just circumstance, Nessa. It doesn't define who we are." "Easy for you to say," Nessa replied, her voice tight. "You're not the one cleaning other people's toilets to make rent." She regretted the words as soon as they left her mouth. Asher's face fell, hurt flashing in his eyes. "I never thought of you that way," he said softly. "Never." Nessa sighed, suddenly tired. "I know, I'm sorry, it's just... Tonight was like stepping into another universe, one I don't belong in. Or maybe one you deserve more than most of the people there," Asher countered. He hesitated, then added, "I have something for you." From his jacket pocket, he pulled a small flash drive. "It's not much," he said, holding it out to her. "Just some writing software I thought you might like, and I found something else I wanted to share." Nessa took the drive, confused. "What is it?" "When we were seniors," Asher said, his voice soft to avoid waking Lily, "you wrote a short story for Mr. Peterson's English class about a girl who wanted to be invisible because being seen always came with pain." Nessa's breath caught. She barely remembered that story. "You still have it?" she asked, incredulous. "I found a copy when I was going through old school things," Asher admitted. "It's on the drive. It was beautiful, Nessa. It made me understand things I was too stupid to see back then." For a moment, they sat in silence, the air between them charged with things unsaid. "Thank you," Nessa finally whispered, clutching the small drive. "For tonight, for everything with Lily, for remembering." Asher's hand moved as if to touch hers, then stopped. "I'll see you next Thursday for cleaning." Nessa nodded. "Same time." The next morning, after Lily left for school, Nessa plugged the flash drive into her old laptop. There was the writing software Asher had mentioned, an expensive program she could never have afforded. And there, in a separate folder, was her story from high school. As she read the words she'd written nearly 20 years ago, tears filled her eyes. It was raw and unpolished, but painfully honest. The story of a girl who felt safer being overlooked than being noticed and judged. At the end of the file was a note from Asher. This story changed me, though I was too young and foolish to admit. You saw things the rest of us missed. You still do. I'm sorry I was one of the people who made being seen painful for you. I hope someday I can be someone who makes it worth the risk. Nessa closed the laptop, her thoughts in turmoil. For years, she'd held on to her image of Asher as the thoughtless, privileged boy who had made her feel small. It was easier that way. A simple story with clear roles, but the man she was coming to know was more complicated, more human. That afternoon, Helen called from the cleaning service. "Just checking in about the Callan job," she said. "Everything going okay there?" "Fine," Nessa replied, trying to sound casual. "Why?" There was a pause on the other end. "Well, I heard some things about you being at that fancy dinner with him last night. People are talking, Nessa." Nessa's stomach dropped. "It wasn't like that. He just invited us because Lily is interested." "In tech?" "Mm-hmm," Helen said skeptically. "Look, I don't judge, but you know how this town is, and cleaning clients, well, they expect a certain professional distance." "Are you taking me off the job?" Nessa asked, her heart racing. "Not yet," Helen said carefully, "but maybe cool things down a bit, okay, for your own good. Men like Asher Callan don't usually end up with women like us, honey. They just have a bit of fun and move on." After hanging up, Nessa sat at her kitchen table, Helen's words echoing in her mind. Was that what this was? Was Asher just amusing himself with her, the way rich men sometimes did with women they saw as beneath them? But that didn't explain the books for Lily, the writing software, the volunteer work Diana had mentioned. It didn't explain the yearbooks with her pictures circled, or the way he remembered how she took her tea 20 years later. Nessa's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. She opened it to find a delivery man holding a small package. "Vanessa." "Green?" he asked, holding out an electronic pad. "Sign here, please." Inside the package was a book, a beautiful hardcover edition of To Kill a Mockingbird. A note was tucked inside the cover, to remind you that people can surprise us, sometimes even for the better. Asher. Nessa traced the embossed cover. With her fingertips, something warm and frightening unfurling in her chest. She was falling for Asher Callan. After all these years, after everything, she was falling for the boy who had once made her cry in the school bathroom, and it terrified her. For the next 2 days, Nessa wrestled with her feelings and Helen's warning. By Thursday morning, she had made her decision. She called the cleaning service and asked to be taken off the Callan job. "Are you sure?" Helen asked, sounding surprised. "He specifically requested you." "I'm sure," Nessa said firmly. "It's for the best." When Lily came home from school that afternoon, Nessa braced herself for her niece's disappointment. "I'm not cleaning Mr. Carlin's house anymore," she said, as Lily dropped her backpack on the kitchen table. "I've asked Helen to assign someone else." Lily stared at her in disbelief. "What? Why? Did something happen?" "Nothing happened," Nessa insisted. "It's just complicated. People are talking and it's not good for business." "So you're just going to stop because of what other people think?" Lily demanded, her voice rising. "After everything he's done for us?" "That's part of the problem," Nessa said, frustration creeping into her voice. "We can't keep accepting things from him. It's not appropriate." "Appropriate?" Lily repeated, her eyes flashing. "He's the only person who's ever believed in me, who's ever treated me like I could be something more than just a kid from the wrong side of town." "I believe in you," Nessa said, hurt. "It's not the same," Lily shot back. "You have to believe in me. You're my aunt." Nessa winced at the unfairness of this, but Lily wasn't finished. "And he likes you," she continued, "like really likes you. I've seen how he looks at you when you're not watching, and I think you like him too. But you're too scared to admit." "It's not that simple," Nessa tried to explain. "People like us don't end up with people like him. That's not how the real world works." "Maybe it could," Lily said, her voice softer now. "If you'd just give it a chance." But Nessa had made up her mind. She had to protect herself, and Lily, from inevitable disappointment. The cleaning job was reassigned, and Nessa threw herself into her other work, trying not to think about the mansion at the end of Memory Lane or its lonely owner. A week passed. Asher called twice, but Nessa let the calls go to voicemail. He left messages asking if he'd done something wrong, if she was okay. She couldn't bring herself to call back. On Saturday afternoon, Nessa was hanging laundry in the backyard when Lily came running out of the house, her face flushed with excitement. "He's here," she said breathlessly. "Asher's here." Nessa's heart lurched. "What? Now?" "He's on the front porch," Lily confirmed, "and he has something with him, some kind of folder or papers." Nessa smoothed her hair, suddenly conscious of her worn jeans and faded t-shirt. "Tell him I'll be right there." Taking a deep breath, she walked through the house to the front door. Asher stood on her porch looking nothing like the polished businessman from the dinner. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, his hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it nervously. When he saw her, relief flooded his features. "Nessa, you're okay. I was worried when you didn't return my calls." "I'm fine," she said, not meeting his eyes. "I've just been busy. Too busy to answer the phone. Too busy to show up for your cleaning job." The hurt in his voice was unmistakable. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Nessa sighed. "It's not you, it's everything. This whole situation, it's not right." "What's not right?" Asher asked, confusion evident in his face. "This," Nessa gestured between them. "You, in your mansion with your fancy cars and important dinners. Me, cleaning houses and worrying about making rent. We're from different worlds, Asher. That's what this is about, money." Asher shook his head in disbelief. "I thought you knew me better than that by now." "It's not just the money," Nessa said, her voice strained. "It's what the money represents, the opportunities you had that I didn't, the life you live that I can't even imagine." "Then let me show you," Asher said, taking a step closer. "Let me show you that none of that matters when it comes to how I feel about you." His words hung in the air between them, the first direct acknowledgement of deeper feelings. Nessa's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay firm. "People are already talking, Asher, about us, about me being at that dinner with you." "Let them talk," he said dismissively. "Since when do you care what people think?" "Since I have a business that depends on reputation," Nessa countered. "Since I have Lily to think about." At the mention of Lily, Asher's expression softened. "That's partly why I'm here," he said, holding up the folder in his hands. "I found something in a box of old school papers, something I think you should see." He held out the folder to her. Inside was a yellowed paper, her short story from senior English class. The original copy, with Mr. Peterson's comments in the margins. "I remembered I had the original," Asher said quietly. "I kept it all these years." Nessa stared at the paper, then back at Asher. "Why would you keep this?" Asher stepped closer, his voice low and intense. "Because even then, when I was too stupid and proud to admit it, I knew there was something special about you, Nessa. Something real in a world that felt fake to me." He took another step, now close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. "I found it in a box," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "It was about a girl who wanted to be invisible, because being seen always came with pain." Nessa couldn't look away from his eyes, which held a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "I saw you then, Nessa," he continued. "I just didn't know how to deserve you." The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, standing on her small porch with the past and present colliding between them. And then, from the doorway behind her, Lily's voice. "Is that the guy who left the comics?" Nessa turned to see her, niece watching them with hopeful eyes, and something inside her finally gave way. All the careful walls she'd built, all the reasons she'd listed to herself about why this couldn't work, they suddenly seemed less important than the truth that was staring her in the face. Maybe, just maybe, some stories could have unexpected endings. "Would you like to come in?" Nessa asked, her voice softer than she intended. "I was just about to make some tea." The relief on Asher's face was immediate and unmistakable. "I'd like that," he said, following her inside. Lily bounced on her heels with barely contained excitement as she led Asher to their small living room. "I've been using that coding software you gave me," she told him eagerly. "I'm building a website for my science club at school." While Lily showed Asher her progress on her laptop, Nessa retreated to the kitchen to make tea, grateful for the moment alone to collect her thoughts. Through the doorway, she could hear Lily's enthusiastic explanations and Asher's thoughtful questions. They seemed so comfortable together, as if they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. When she returned with the mugs of tea, Asher was sitting on their worn sofa, looking surprisingly at home despite the humble surroundings. He accepted the tea with a smile that made her heart skip. "Earl Grey," he said, inhaling the steam. "You remembered." "Hard to forget when someone remembers how you take your tea 20 years later," Nessa replied, settling into the armchair across. From him, an awkward silence fell, broken only by the tapping of Lily's fingers on her laptop keys. Finally, Asher cleared his throat. "Nessa, I understand why you stopped coming to the house," he said carefully, "but I wish you had talked to me first." "It was complicated," she said, staring into her mug. "People were talking and my boss warned me that cleaning clients expect a certain professional distance." "Is that the only reason?" Asher asked, his eyes searching hers. Nessa hesitated, aware of Lily pretending not to listen. "No," she admitted finally. "I was scared." "Of me? Of this?" She gestured vaguely between them. "Of whatever is happening here." "It doesn't make sense, Asher. We're from different worlds." "Maybe that's why it works," he suggested, "because we see each other more clearly than people from the same world would." Lily closed her laptop with a decisive snap. "I'm going to Jenna's house to work on our science project," she announced, grabbing her backpack. "You two should talk alone." Before Nessa could protest, Lily was out the door, leaving her and Asher in a silence that suddenly felt much more intimate. "Smart kid," Asher said with a small smile. "Too smart sometimes," Nessa agreed. She took a deep breath. "Asher, what are we doing here? Really?" He set down his mug and leaned forward, his expression serious. "I'm trying to fix a mistake I made 20 years ago," he said. "When I was too young and stupid to recognize what was right in front of me." "We were kids," Nessa said dismissively. "You couldn't have known—" "I did know," Asher interrupted. "On some level, I knew exactly how special you were. Why else would I have kept your story all these years? Why would I have circled your picture in every yearbook?" Nessa's cheeks warmed at the memory of those yearbooks with her photos circled. "The truth is," Asher continued, "I've thought about you more than I should admit over the years. Wondered what happened to you. If you were happy, if you ever finished that novel you were always talking about writing." "I never did," Nessa admitted. "Life got in the way." "It's not too late," Asher said gently. "You're still the same talented person you were then." Nessa shook her head. "I'm not the same at all, neither are you." "Maybe that's good," Asher suggested. "Maybe we needed to grow up, to go through everything we've experienced, to be ready for each other now." The hope in his voice made something flutter in Nessa's chest, but doubt still lingered. "People will talk," she said. "They already are." "Let them," Asher shrugged. "I've spent too many years caring what people think. It's exhausting." "Easy for you to say," Nessa countered. "You're not the one they'll judge for going after a rich man." Asher's expression darkened. "Is that what you think this is? That you're going after me for my money?" "Of course not," Nessa said quickly. "But that's what they'll say." "Since when does Vanessa Green care what they think?" Asher asked, a hint of the old challenge in his voice. "The girl I remember stood up to our entire English class when they said The Great Gatsby was just a love story." Despite herself, Nessa smiled at the memory. "Mr. Peterson nearly had a heart attack when I called it a critique of the American dream." "You were right, though," Asher said. "You usually were." Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. All the years, all the differences in their lives seemed to fall away, leaving just the two of them, Nessa and Asher, stripped of the past and the present complications. "I missed you," Asher said softly, "even when I had no right to, even when I didn't understand why. I missed you, Nessa." Before she could respond, his phone rang. With an apologetic glance, He checked the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry. I have to take this." "It's my assistant. There's an issue with one of our servers." As Asher stepped outside to take the call, Nessa sat quietly, her thoughts in turmoil. Part of her wanted to believe everything he was saying, to take the chance on whatever this was between them. But another part, the practical part that had kept her and Lily afloat all these years, warned her about fairy tales and happy endings that rarely came true in real life. When Asher returned, his expression was apologetic. "I'm sorry, but I need to go into the office. There's a security issue that needs my attention." "Of course," Nessa said, rising to walk him to the door. "I understand." At the door, Asher turned to face her. "Nessa, I don't want to leave things unsettled between us. Can I see you tomorrow? Maybe we could have dinner, just the two of us this time." Nessa hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, dinner tomorrow." The smile that lit up Asher's face was worth the risk she was taking. "I'll pick you up at 7, he said, then added quickly, "unless you'd rather meet somewhere." 7 is fine, Nessa. Confirmed. "I'll be ready." After Asher left, Nessa sat alone in her living room, trying to process everything that had happened. She picked up the folder containing her old story, reading Mr. Peterson's comments in the margins. "Exceptional insight into human nature. You have a real gift, Vanessa." She had forgotten that feeling, the pride of creating something that touched others. Somewhere along the way, between her sister's illness, taking in Lily, and the daily struggle to make ends meet, she had lost that part of herself. When Lily returned an hour later, she found Nessa at the kitchen table, typing on the laptop Asher had given her. "What are you doing?" Lily asked, peering over her shoulder. "Writing," Nessa replied simply. "Just seeing if I still can." Lily's face broke into a wide smile. "About time," she said, squeezing her aunt's shoulders. "So, did you and Asher work things out?" "We're having dinner tomorrow," Nessa admitted. "Just dinner, Lily, don't get too excited." But Lily was already bouncing with excitement. "What are you going to wear? Can I do your hair? This is so romantic." Despite her attempts to stay level-headed, Nessa found herself caught up in Lily's enthusiasm. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around the next evening, she was wearing her best dress. A simple red wrap style that Lily had insisted brought out the warmth in her complexion, and her hair was styled in soft waves around her face. "You look beautiful," Lily declared, standing back to admire her work. Asher won't know what hit him. When the doorbell rang, Nessa's heart raced like a teenager's on her first date. Lily gave her a quick hug before retreating to her bedroom, giving them privacy. Asher stood on the porch holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. He was dressed in a casual sport coat and dark jeans, elegant but not overly formal. "You look amazing," he said, his eyes taking her in with unmistakable appreciation. "These are for you." Nessa accepted the flowers with a smile. "Thank you, they're beautiful." "I remembered you saying once that you preferred wildflowers to roses," Asher explained. "Something about them being more honest." The fact that he remembered such a small detail from so long ago touched her deeply. "I'll just put these in water," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. As they drove to the restaurant, Nessa was surprised when they headed away from the fancy downtown establishments and toward the outskirts of town. "Where are we going?" she asked curiously. "It's a surprise," Asher replied with a small smile. "Trust me?" The question seemed to carry more weight than just their dinner destination. Nessa found herself nodding. "I'm trying to." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. It wasn't fancy, just a cozy neighborhood place with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. "I found this place when I first moved back," Asher explained as he held the door for her. "The owner, Marco, makes pasta like my grandmother used to." The elderly man who greeted them clearly knew Asher well, embracing him like family before leading them to a quiet table in the corner. "Your usual spot, Mr. Asher," Marco said with a wink. "Very private, very romantic." As they settled in, Nessa looked around at the humble but charming surroundings. "This isn't what I expected," she admitted. "What did you expect? Some overpriced place downtown where they serve tiny portions on huge plates?" Asher grinned. "I get enough of that at business dinners." I guess I'm still figuring out who you really are, Nessa said, unfolding her napkin. The Asher I knew. In high school, the tech millionaire in the magazines, or the guy who can't fix a leaky faucet to save his life, Asher finished for her. They're all me, Nessa, just different parts. The evening flowed easily after that. They talked about books they'd read, places they'd seen, dreams they'd had and lost and found again. Asher told her about the early days of his company, sleeping on friends' couches while trying to get investors to believe in his ideas. Nessa shared stories about Lily growing up, about the joy and challenges of raising a child who wasn't her own, but had become her whole world. I admire you so much, Asher said as they shared a tiramisu for dessert. Everything you've done for Lily, how you've sacrificed for her. You're an amazing woman, Nessa. I just did what anyone would do, she said, uncomfortable with the praise. No, you didn't, Asher insisted. Most people wouldn't have given up their dreams to raise someone else's child. Most people wouldn't have worked as hard as you have without complaint to give her a good life. His words warmed her, but also brought a pang of old insecurities. And yet here we are, me cleaning houses while you run a tech empire. Asher reached across the table to take her hand. You know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who chose love over ambition, who put someone else's needs above her own. That's worth more than any company I could ever build. Their eyes met across the table, and Nessa felt something shift inside her, a wall crumbling, a door opening to possibilities she had long ago shut away. After dinner, instead of driving straight home, Asher took a detour that led them to a small park overlooking the city lights. I come here sometimes to think, he said as they walked along a quiet path. It helps to see the big picture. In the soft glow of the park lights, Nessa studied his profile. Why did you come back here, Asher? You could live anywhere with your success. Why come back to this small town? Asher was quiet for a moment. Unfinished business, I guess, he finally said. I left too many things unsaid, too many wrongs not righted. Is that what I am? Unfinished business. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Asher stopped walking and turned to face her. No, he said firmly. You're not business. Unfinished or otherwise, you're... He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking less confident than she'd ever seen him. You're the road not taken, Nessa. The choice I was too young and stupid to make. The raw honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Asher, please let me finish, he said. I've built this whole life, the company, the house, everything, trying to prove something. To my parents, to the world, to myself. But none of it means anything if I can't share it with someone who matters. Someone real. He took a step closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him in the cool evening air. I think I've been looking for you for 20 years, he said softly. I just didn't know it until you showed up at my door with a bottle of window cleaner. A laugh bubbled up through Nessa's throat, breaking the intensity of the moment. That's quite a line, Callan, he grinned, the tension easing between them. Too much. Maybe a little, she admitted, but she was smiling too. They continued walking, their hands finding each other in the darkness. It felt natural, as if they'd been doing this for years. I've been writing again, Nessa said after a while. Just a little, but it feels good. That's wonderful, Asher said, genuine pleasure in his voice. What are you working on? Nothing specific yet, just getting the feel of it again. She hesitated, then added, It was reading my old story that did it, remembering that I used to have something to say. You still do, Asher said firmly. You always have. As they drove back to her house, a comfortable silence fell between them. When they reached her door, Nessa found herself reluctant for the evening to end. Would you like to come in for coffee? She asked. Lily's probably still up, pretending she's not waiting to hear all about our date. Asher smiled. I'd like that. Inside, they found Lily in her pajamas on the couch, trying to look casual as if she hadn't been watching out the window for them. Oh, hey, she said innocently. How was dinner? It was nice, Nessa said, exchanging an amused glance with Asher. I'm going to make some coffee. Homework finished? Hours ago, Lily assured her, then turned her attention to Asher. So, did you guys have a good time? Did you talk about important stuff? Are you going to see each other again? Lily, Nessa called from the kitchen. Boundaries, remember. But Asher just laughed. Yes, and I hope so, he answered Lily's questions in order. Assuming your aunt is willing to put up with me. She likes you, Lily stage whispered. She was nervous all day about your date. I can hear you, Nessa called, returning with coffee mugs. And I'm rethinking that college fund. The three of them talked and laughed together until well past Lily's bedtime. When she finally went to bed, after extracting a promise from Asher to look at her coding project the next time he visited, Nessa walked Asher to the door. Thank you for tonight, she said. I had a wonderful time. So did I, Asher replied. He hesitated, then asked, would you consider coming back to work at the house? Not as my cleaning lady, he added quickly. The place is a mess without you, but that's not why I'm asking. I just miss seeing you there. Nessa considered this. What would Helen say, my boss, I mean? Tell her I'm hiring you directly as a household manager, Asher suggested. It's not a lie. The place falls apart without you. And it would give us more time together without the town gossips getting too excited. It was a compromise, a way to bridge their two worlds without defying convention too openly. Nessa found herself nodding. Okay, she agreed, but I set my own hours and no special treatment. I'm still there to work. Agreed, Asher said with a smile. Though I reserve the right to ask you to have lunch with me sometimes. I could probably allow that, Nessa conceded. As Asher leaned in to kiss her goodnight, a gentle, almost hesitant kiss that held the promise of more, Nessa felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not just for herself, but for a future she had stopped believing was possible. Over the next few weeks, a new routine emerged. Nessa spent 3 days a week at Asher's house, organizing and managing the space that was too large for one person. Sometimes they worked side by side in comfortable silence, Asher on his laptop, Nessa sorting through the rooms that had never been properly set up. Other times, they talked for hours, filling in the 20-year gap in their lives, discovering the people they had become. Lily became a regular visitor to the mansion, especially after Asher set up a small coding lab in one of the spare rooms. For future interns, he explained, when Nessa raised an eyebrow at the expensive equipment. The town gossip still talked, of course, but as summer turned to fall, their whispers became less judgmental and more curious. The unlikely pair, the tech millionaire and the former cleaning lady, became a source of fascination rather than scandal. It's like a movie, Helen told Nessa one day when they ran into each other at the grocery store. The kind where the rich guy falls for the ordinary girl and everyone lives happily ever after. Life isn't a movie, Helen, Nessa reminded her. It's more complicated than that. And it was complicated. There were awkward moments when Asher's business associates looked at Nessa with barely disguised curiosity. There were times when Nessa's old insecurities resurfaced, leaving her wondering if she could ever truly fit into Asher's world. But for every difficult moment, there were dozens of good ones. Asher helping Lily prepare for a coding competition. Nessa reading drafts of her new writing to Asher late at night in the sunroom. The three of them having impromptu movie nights with takeout pizza in Asher's barely used home theater. One crisp October evening, almost exactly a year after Nessa had first knocked on Asher's door with her cleaning supplies, they sat together on the porch of his mansion, watching the sunset paint the hills in gold and crimson. I have something to show you, Asher said, taking her hand and leading her inside to his office. On his desk was a stack of papers, a manuscript with Nessa's name on the cover page. I had it printed, he explained, watching her face carefully. Your novel. I thought you might want to hold it, see how it feels as a real book. Nessa ran her fingers over the pages, emotion tightening her throat. 6 months of early mornings and late nights, of doubts and breakthroughs all collected here in physical form. It's just a first draft, she said, but pride colored her voice. It probably needs a lot of work. It's brilliant, Asher insisted. And I'm not just saying that because I'm hopelessly in love with the author. The words hung in the air between them, not the first time they'd been spoken, but still new enough to make Nessa's heart skip. Hopelessly, huh? She teased, moving into his arms. Completely, Asher confirmed, kissing her softly, which is why I've been thinking about something. He guided her to the window that overlooked the sprawling property. "This house is too big." "For one person," he said. "It always has been, but it might be just right for three." Nessa froze, understanding his meaning immediately. "Asher, are you asking us to move in with you?" "I'm asking us to make a home together," he clarified. "Here, or somewhere else if you prefer. I just know I want to wake up with you every morning, help Lily with her homework, listen to you read your latest chapters. I want a life with you, Nessa, a real one." Nessa looked out at the beautiful grounds, at the mansion that had once intimidated her. It wasn't the house itself that mattered. It was the man beside her, the life they could build together. "What will people say?" she asked, but the question held no real worry anymore. Asher smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "They'll say that Asher Callan finally got something right, that he was smart enough to recognize the best thing that ever happened. To him, even if it took him 20 years to figure it out." Nessa leaned into him, thinking of the long road that had led them here, from high school corridors to this moment. All the missed chances, the wrong turns, the years of becoming, the people they needed to be for each other. "We'd need a room for Lily's coding equipment," she said at last, "and somewhere quiet where I can write." Asher's face lit up. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," Nessa confirmed, smiling as he lifted her into a joyful embrace. "Turns out some stories do get second chances after all." As they stood together in the golden light of the setting sun, Nessa thought about the girl she had once been, the one who wanted to be invisible, because being seen brought pain. That girl could never have imagined this future, this happiness. But maybe Asher had been right all along. Maybe he had seen her, truly seen her even back then, and maybe it had taken both of them all these years to be ready for what had been waiting at the end of memory lane. A home, a family, a love that had been there all along. The end.